some people will see me on my really good days, and so they won't understand my struggling days. I've seen that with the traumatic brain injury. What I've seen with the physical disability is that people see my brokenness, people see weakness, and they automatically think she can't do this. And so they default to not inviting me to do it and not encouraging me to do it. Or if I try to volunteer to do something physical, they'll be like, oh no, we don't want you to get hurt. They think that I'm more fragile than some other people. And for some disabilities, that may be true. But I feel like if I want to do something and I'm actually stepping up to do it, that's all the more reason to encourage me to do it, because I'm saying, hey, in this moment, I'm fine doing this. I'm not at any greater risk than anybody else. Let me do this. Let me at least try, because I see that as an opportunity for me to figure out what my limits are and what my abilities are. You never know what you can or cannot do unless you try. And I'm just like, give me an opportunity to try to live life to the fullest, and we'll see how full that is.
I love that. So how would you recommend people interact with somebody who's in a wheelchair, who has a physical disability? You mentioned earlier, if you volunteer to do something, to let you do it. And I know it's a generalization and everyone's different, but speaking from experience, how would you want to be treated, and how would you advocate for other people who have visible disabilities for us to learn how to better interact and connect?
Right. For me, it's not about necessarily denying the fact that I have a disability. I don't want people to do that. I want them to accept the fact that I do have a disability, but also acknowledge my abilities, assume that I can do it, and just treat me like you would treat anybody else with or without a disability. Give me the opportunity to try whatever anybody else is doing, and then let me decide whether or not it can be done. Just treat me like you would treat anybody else, regardless of the wheelchair, regardless of the crutches, regardless of the leg braces, whatever you see about me. Because for me, it's not about the crutches. It's not about the wheelchair. It's not about what you see on the outside. Look at me for who I am on the inside, and just give me the same opportunities you're going to give anybody else. That's really it.
That's good. I have another question. Do you prefer people to talk to you while they're standing up or bending down to get on your level? Because I've heard both sides. Sometimes some people have told me, oh, it's better if you get on their level so you're talking to them face to face, so you're not talking down to someone in a wheelchair. But then I've heard other people say, oh, well, if you like bend down to talk to me, it feels like you're talking down to me more than if you're just standing up straight. So do you ever encounter the way that people like talk to you or interact with you in person? And what would you say about that?
Yeah. You know what? I would say that if there is a means for you to sit down, please do so, especially if you are a tall person, because I would rather look at you straight in the eyes rather than having to strain my neck. If there is, not a place for you to sit and you need to stand, then, if I'm sitting in my wheelchair, I have the ability to back myself up a little bit. And so that I'm not straining my neck so much. But I really do prefer people being at my level as much as possible so that I don't have to strain my neck, because I am actually short even when I stand up. I'm only 4'10". Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for answering that question. Because I think those are things that people think about, but they always like don't want to ask because they don't want to be rude, you know? And so if that helps someone listening, you know,
Yeah.
because what you're talking about is dignity and respect. You
Yeah.
know, you're talking about having respect for somebody with a disability. And for those of us in the brain injury community who are listening, we may be able to relate and understand with people who have concussions in the invisible side. But when we go to brain injury support groups and brain injury events, I guarantee there are people listening, and there's a large percentage of the brain injury population that does have physical disabilities as the result of
Right.
their accident, whether it's because they were in a car accident and they have had some other issues, or a spine disability, or other things that have happened that has affected their ability to walk. And
Right.
so for that population of the brain injury community, I think your story and your encouragement is so important, and your advocacy is so important. And I just so appreciate you sharing your story with us today.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I figure if I'm sitting in a chair, then I figure that other people talking to me should feel comfortable to sit down also. And I feel like the only thing that really would offend me when you're talking to me is if you talk to me as if I'm a child. I'm a 44-year-old adult. And so I just expect people to treat me like they would any other adult. Um,
Thank you for sharing that. I also wanted to ask you about the role that your faith has played in your recovery. You know, you've mentioned how God has played a part in your recovery, and I just wanted to ask, could you share a little bit about that?
yeah, my faith is everything to me. I would not be the person I am today if it weren't for my relationship with God. You know, Scripture says that God uses the weak things of this world to put the stronger things to shame. You know, and I feel like that's really what God is using me for, is to show people without disabilities, people who are able-bodied, to show them that, hey, I can do a whole lot more than your expectations of me. I think that the able-bodied society has a tendency to set the bar low for me, for their level of expectation of what I can do. And God is using me to put that to shame. And, you know, it's interesting because my first name is Lisa, which means blessed by God with a promise. And my middle name is Nicole, which means the victory of the people. And I really believe God is using my life, and He is blessing me with the promise that my life will be used to claim victory for people with disabilities, whether that's through my advocacy work, whether that's through the sports that I've done, whether it's through just this opportunity of sharing my story. You know, God is using all of it for me to claim victory for people with disabilities. And if that's going to be my legacy, then, you know, I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I'm going to use it to my fullest abilities. And I'm going to, in the process, I'm going to show the able bodied community that this is my ability. You know, I may have to sit in a wheelchair to do what I do. I may have to use crutches. I may not always remember things off the top of my head. I may not be comfortable in certain situations, and I may have anxiety, but I can still be victorious in life. God has promised that to me, and He's walking right by my side through all of it. And I will show the world that people with disabilities have value. You know, Scripture says that neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this has happened so that my works and glory will be revealed through this man's life. He said that about the blind man. He says that about every person with a disability, that our lives are not about what went wrong at our birth or what went wrong at our time of injury, but they are disabilities, and our life with disability is to be used to show people what God is doing right through our lives.
That's so beautiful. I had tears in my eyes. So, all right, one more question for you, Lisa. On Hope Survives podcast, the final question I always ask is, what is a final word of hope or encouragement you have for those listening today?
Yeah, you know what? It goes back to my motto, just keep pushing forward. Don't let your disability, don't let your brain injury, don't let any of that, don't let people's perception of you or their judgment of you, don't let that be the end of your story. Keep pushing forward. Find what you can do. Maybe you can't do everything that you were doing before your injury, but find something you can do and keep pushing forward. Keep pushing forward until you reach that finish line. And when you can hear God say, well done, good and faithful servant.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lisa. You are so inspiring. I feel like I know you even better after this, and I'm grateful for your friendship. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm on Facebook, Lisa Nicole Pubantz. I'm in your Hope after head injury group. So you can find me there. And I'm on different disability groups on Facebook.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity. As I say, this is not just an opportunity for me to get my story out, but it's an opportunity for me to bless other people's lives and let them know that they can do whatever it is that God sets out for them to do.
Wow. So inspiring. Thank you so much. I know our listeners are definitely blessed.
Yeah, thank you.
Through your darkest night, hope survives.